All right, welcome back to the WFEA Morning Update, and welcome back to Doug Burgum, Governor of North Dakota, who's joining us live in studio. Governor Burgum, welcome.
Drew, great to be here with you always.
Yeah, great to have you as always. And you came in with your four-wheel drive, off-road. What do you even call that thing?
Well, it's been nicknamed Scooter One. This is related to me blowing my Achilles playing basketball, but I was ready to invent this product because they had the little medical device that had hard tires, and every time you hit a crack in the sidewalk, it was like driving a nail in your shin. No disc brakes, no steering rods, and I was just about ready to launch a company to build this, and then a little old lady goes, "You need a knee rover." And I'm like, "What's a knee rover?" It turns out they didn't need to build a company; they just need more online marketing because these guys were hard to find. Yeah, hard to find, but it's a great product.
That's cool. It's got knobby wheels, and it looks like an ATV little scooter for your kid. It's really my team is hoping that I'll recover, get off Scooter One, because when we're going through airports or through events, at an event, I'm much faster now than I was before because you can just fly on this thing, especially downhill. I'm glad the brakes don't go out. I don't know.
I'll make another headline, because it's just too much fun.
I think the staff would freak out. They give you a helmet, if you're going downhill, just in case. So you're mobile?
One thing, I'm going to the football game on Saturday, but I am looking for a add-on because I need a cup holder for tailgating because there's no cup holder on this thing.
You need one of those baseball beer hats. That's and that could be
2 straws.
It can double as your helmet.
Yes.
It's a safety device, but then you might get pulled for drinking or driving. So keep it to sparkling water or something. It would be good. So Governor Burgum, you're here in New Hampshire. Today is your filing day, right? The period's open?
Absolutely.
All right. You're going down?
Going to be heading up and writing a check and signing my name. And First Lady Catherine and I are very excited to be doing this, and it's an honor. And what an important role that New Hampshire plays as the first in the nation primary.
Well, the problem is you've got a puffy vest on, and you're going to look like everybody else in New Hampshire walking in the State House, so they don't know how you're going to have to fight your way through because they're not going to know who you are. You're filing. So once that happens, it's official. You're in for good. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So, and that's something that, voters, Republicans keep asking, me to ask you is, frankly, all the candidates is, you are in, and you're going to make this push for the primary. And what is your strategy at this point? I know we talked about this when we had you on this spring, for, making that push in New Hampshire to, place first, second. Like, what's your goal here, and what's your thinking about how you can come out on top?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thanks to all the people of New Hampshire, because the people we've met around the state since we've launched on June 7th have been amazing. They're engaged, they're knowledgeable, they're inquisitive, they're curious. They care deeply about not just their state, but about the country. And you just can't overestimate the importance. And we still travel. I've got my day job. I'm running a state. We're, around the country at other events, but people aren't paying attention the way they are here in New Hampshire. And New Hampshire's, the role of the voters here really matters. And of course, we got a especially unique period of time now where we've got a lot of pundits, that are trying to say, this is how the race should go. We've had people say everybody should drop out and endorse the former president. I'm like, maybe we should cancel the NFL season too. And because Newt Gingrich knows, who's going to win the Super Bowl. So we don't need to even have the season. But I just tell everybody, look, people in New Hampshire are going to decide. They're the ones that get to narrow the field. That's why we have early state primaries where people get engaged and come out and meet the candidates, spend time with them. And so it's an interesting thing, but I think the uniqueness of this primary, where essentially we've got an incumbent president, and then we've never had this before, where you've got a former that's running, so it's kind of like 2 incumbents. Yeah. And competition is good for the Republican Party. It's good for the nation. It's good for the world right now. We need leadership that people can trust with integrity, that have a good understanding of the economy and the global view. And when I look up and down that debate stage and I'm like, wow, I've created more jobs than everybody else on the stage combined. I'm the only one that's been making payroll since my mid-20s. I'm the only one that, grew up working a string of jobs where I was taking a shower at the end of the day, working construction, working on the farm, the ranch, working at the grain elevator, even worked as a chimney sweep to pay my way through college. That's a dirty job. It's just interesting because right now with the economy, energy, national security, these are things that are more than ever, we need leadership. We got 3 kids. I never thought that I'd be talking to them about World War III, and I started doing that almost a year ago. And then here we are today. We're in a proxy war with Russia. Now we're in a proxy war with Iran, and we're in a Cold War with China. And it's not in the leadership that we have and the policies we have under the Biden administration are actually destabilizing the world, empowering dictators, raising inflation here at home, and creating a less safe world. And so, we're running with a heart of passion, but also with a sense of urgency that we've got to get leadership to take the country in a different direction.
Yeah, I think a lot of voters feel a sense of urgency this year. And you mentioned the debate, and I want to get to this policy stuff, but just wanted to touch on this. In the second debate, you came out pretty aggressively and, made the case for yourself. You didn't sit back. You sort of, spoke up, and you got more airtime. And you strike me as a kind of a soft-spoken, thoughtful guy. But this time we're in, getting attention, getting media coverage, getting that, focus on you is such, it is the currency of politics right now. And I wonder if you've changed the way you campaign versus being, in North Dakota versus running for president. Have you had a switch there and realizing, hey, I really have to start saying, stuff, being more forceful, getting more media coverage, or is it pretty much the same approach?
Well, I think between the first debate and the second one, the first one, it was, I don't know if you saw that, Drew, but it was voted best debate performance ever by someone standing on one leg, because I had blown my Achilles playing basketball 24 hours earlier. I was in a lot of pain that night. The second one, obviously, I was feeling better. I was still on one leg, but the one leg was a lot stronger. But it is people in New Hampshire probably can relate to this. It's so easy for the media. Talking heads and others, it's just sort of like, New Hampshire, you're a small state, North Dakota, we don't need to hear from that. And so we do have to fight for every minute when we're in this national competition. And the political debates are not really presidential debates. It sounds like a lot of gravitas, but a real presidential debate would help the American voters understand the qualities of the people that are there, but instead they're right now designed as reality TV. Exactly. They were designed for inter-candidate conflict. And I think the change is I'm not someone who's attacked the other candidates. I haven't attacked the former president. And so therefore I'm actually getting invited to less places on national media because they want people who will attack other candidates.
And that's kind of my point, is like you have to change your approach just to get airtime, right? And that's just, it's frustrating. I think the debates aren't debates, they're just speed dating at this point. But do you have thoughts on how to make the debates better? You've been through them a couple of times. It seems like you were frustrated, and understandably so, in the format.
Well, I think one is actually enforce the rules, and the other is the whole decision between the clubhouse rules of a national party and a cable channel to have hot mics, and everybody's mics are on all the time,
right?
And then ask questions that are actually inviting candidates to criticize each other. So like I said, it's a reality TV, because even nobody wants to listen to a 60-second answer. They want the 8-second TikTok,
right?
Trim down thing. So again, that's why it goes back. New Hampshire voters are actually listening to full answers. They're actually meeting people in person and reading them and using their intuition and their impressions of the people. And that's why it's so important, because the rest of the nation is getting 8-second clips of conflict. Yeah. And you wouldn't pick the coach for your third grade daughter's soccer team by saying who can throw the fastest insults at each other. Okay, we're going with that one. That person was really entertaining, but they may not even know how to play soccer or coach soccer or even know the rules. And so it's like, again, when we've got, our position of having, more private sector experience, a proven track record of taking that private sector experience of job creation, tax cutting, we shrank everyone's like, oh, the budget, balance the budget. In North Dakota, we actually cut the budget by 27% my first 4 months in office, and all the trains ran on time. That's unheard of. People, they talk about making progress on a budget. They're slowing the growth. We actually took a number, reduced it by 27%. 1.7 billion. Things still ran. How do you do that? You spend 30 years in the software business, the most competitive sector in the world, where every day you've got to have things be faster, cheaper, better, higher value, better customer service tomorrow than you did today, or you're going to go out of business because there's no subsidies, there's no tariffs. It's just all raw competition.
Yeah. So how do you do that in Washington when 70-ish% of the federal budget is social spendings and entitlement programs? How do you have that kind of impact on spending?
Well, I think, again, the lack of political will, the lack of courage, the lack of honesty in Washington is no more visible than when it comes to the fact that you just brought up, Drew. You can't take, 75, 80% of the actual budget and then say, I'm going to do something about it, but we're not going to touch that.
Yeah.
And we've got both parties right now that are saying it's untouchable, and they'll use it as a political weapon against each other. But I would just say, take Social Security. We've got a solemn, deep commitment to everybody who's been paying into that system their whole life. But get a load of this. With the technological breakthroughs we're going to have, we're heading towards a period of abundance in our lives. I mean, with the advances that we're going to see in biotech and tech, entire disease categories are going to be eliminated. If you're somebody who's under the age of 18 today, plan on living to 100. I mean, that'll be typical. I mean, we're going to see big expansions in lifespan. And if you do that, our country is bankrupt if we say that someone who isn't born yet, who's going to pay in for 30 years, we're going to pay out for 50 years.
Yeah.
There's no math that works on that. It doesn't work.
So, and that's the thing. You have to, in the long run, you have to pick a year in which you just say, we got to raise the entire retirement age. It's insane, even right now. But to your point, if people are living to 90 and 100, it's not sustainable. So you have to do that with Medicare and Medicaid. What are your, just really quickly, sort of bullet point ways to tackle that growth?
Well, I was just saying, with FDR, when they came up in the 1930s with the whole idea of Social Security, they said, we're going to start paying out after age 62.
Yeah.
The average lifespan was 62.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it was, so now, and then all of a sudden our expanding lives, but it's going to accelerate. The problem is going to be the healthcare side. Nobody addresses the cost stuff. We spent 15 years talking about Obamacare. It's not a care program. It's an insurance program for a small portion of Americans. And it's non-actuarially sound insurance program that we have to subsidize. And everybody acts like it has something to do with healthcare. It was an insurance program. And if you want to address healthcare costs, you've actually got to reduce the cost of healthcare. And there's ways to do that. I worked as a chairman of a software company that had tools to increase productivity. Instead, the federal government subsidized electronic healthcare records to the tune of the healthcare sector invested $1 trillion over 10 years, starting in 2008 with Obama, only sector to spend $1 trillion in IT. And at the end of the day, of that 10 years, the doctors are seeing fewer patients per day than they were at the beginning. We've got more doctors retiring than we've got people coming out of med school. We have more nurses. Baby boomers retiring. Population is aging. As baby boomers need more care, we've got less providers. We have to address the productivity of healthcare. And we created $1 trillion of cost that actually went the opposite direction. This is the same federal government higher education. We didn't have better education. We just got $1.6 trillion of student debt. We didn't come up with better graduates and better universities. So whenever the federal government gets involved with subsidies and picking winners like they're trying to do now with EV cars, it makes it worse. Stop doing that. So,
Governor Burgum, let's take a short break, and then we'll come back with a few minutes more of our conversation with Governor Doug Burgum right here on 99.9 and AM 1370 WFEA. All right, so Governor Doug Burgum, you're running for president. You were just talking about government picking winners and losers, government overregulating the economy, and I want to throw an issue out to you that we haven't actually talked about before, but it comes up a lot in New England. We have New England, and in California and other states, we have in New England, a lot of the states here are banning menthol cigarettes. New York is doing it. California is doing this kind of stuff, or raising taxes on tobacco products or on vaping products to try to, clamp down on youth smoking, they say. But then we see people just in Massachusetts come across the border and buy more stuff. There are efforts to regulate this stuff at the FDA to do much higher regulation on these types of products. And just from a free market business guy point of view, but also you're sort of thinking about, how the federal government should work. Just wondering if you have any thoughts on where we should go in that direction with these sorts of menthol bans and smoking stuff, just in general.
Well, my general view of all this is that the federal government is way too much out of their lane in terms of the specific things that they're supposed to manage. And I think one of the great things about America, and one of the ways we're going to win the Cold War with China, is through innovation, not regulation. Regulation raises costs, it reduces competition, it does create winners and losers, and it's always out of date. I mean, I take having come again from the tech world. And again, understanding technology is changing every job, every company, and every industry. And I'm the only person who's ever run for president who's got a substantial background in technology. Yeah. And wouldn't it be great? Because that's one of the ways that we were able to cut the size of government in my home state. It's when we got done with our session this spring, and we had 24 cabinet agencies for our post-legislative offsite, because they get together, and in North Dakota our legislature meets every 2 years. We got a 20-month ramp where we can actually just go execute, and we have an offsite, and we go, okay, we're done with the budgeting, here we go, now we're executing strategy. We focused on AI for the whole 2 days. I had agencies that said, wow, I didn't get the extra FTEs I wanted. We're like, hey, you got a free thing here called ChatGPT, speaks 26 languages, and it can code, and it'll work 7 days a week for you. And it's like, and you don't need an appropriation from the legislature. It's a free tool. How can we use that? Speed up permitting. How can we use that to, help you be more responsive to customers? How can we actually just eliminate the mind-numbing, soul-sucking work that's in every government job? 10 to 20% of the work that they might do is some regulation that got invented 20 or 30 years ago. And then I see it as a governor where the federal government is just coming down on the states and on business. I saw it as a small business, large business leader. And then now as a governor, we're literally fighting the Biden administration on 20 fronts. There's like 4 rules from U.S. Fish and Wildlife. There's a half a dozen from the Bureau of Land Management, EPA. I'm losing count. And then we have to do a whole of government approach, hire lawyers, take them to federal court. And in cases we've won, like on Waters of the USA, which would have impacted 90% of the farmers and ranchers in our state, or on the fact that they were breaking the law relative to actually giving leases that are lawfully required to drill for minerals on federal land. Federal land is not a Biden administration asset. It belongs to the people of America. It's America's balance sheet. And Theodore Roosevelt put that away for the, quote, benefit and use of the American people. He didn't say put it away and never set foot on it, never cut a tree. It's an asset that allows us to be competitive in the world, but use it sustainably, which we can do in our country. So on the regulation, I've seen it firsthand where the federal government thinks there's a problem. Then they go through rulemaking. They say we're releasing the rule, but the rule turns out to be 800 pages long. Seriously, it's not a rule. They say it's singular, but singular to me would be like a sentence. It's 800 pages. You sort through all that, and then it takes them a while to get the thing, then they release it, and then we need a federal employee, so we need a pickup and a clipboard, and a person's going to drive around our state, trying to look at 1,000 locations to see whether someone's following the rule. That whole process can take 6 to 8 years. Meanwhile, Moore's Law, which is where I've come from, where you're doubling the power of a computer chip every 18 months at half the price. Yeah. By the time the federal employee's in the pickup running around trying to enforce a regulation, guess what? There's an innovative solution that's already solved the problem. That's why in North Dakota, we've said, hey, we can be carbon neutral by 2030. And the way we're going to get there, no new mandates, no new regulations. It's all innovation. It's not like, oh, we're going to ban internal combustion vehicles and ban pickups and do this. We're going to actually just go innovate, and we got carbon negative fuels. We've got carbon neutral fuels.
All right, Governor Burgum. Unfortunately, we're out of time. So I have so many more questions for you. We'll have to have you back on.
Would love to be back anytime, Drew.
All right. Thanks a lot. We'll be back in a moment.